Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I'm Glenn Rubenstein, joined this week by Wrestling Inc. founder, proprietor, Giri, and the man, the myth, the legend, adjusting his studio equipment as we speak, ready to hop on the Air Force and discuss the WWE pay-per-view Battleground, which just ended. We've got here, joining us once again, Vince Russo. How's it going, Vince?
All right, man. How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Kind of stoked after Battleground. You know, between the pre-show, the show, everything leading up to it, it's a little, takes its toll. So I think if I come out of it and I still want to talk about it, it must have been an all right pay-per-view.
Well, I'm glad you still want to talk about it. That makes fun of us, right, Raj?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna call it like I see it. That's what I always do. Raj knows that.
Yeah.
I don't know. In recent memory, I think Payback really set the bar pretty low for me in terms of just like, okay, this is just a complete waste of my time. So compared to Payback, I'm on cloud nine. You know, not perfect in my opinion, but they did some stuff right and some stuff that frustrated me. But if it wasn't frustrating, it wouldn't be the WWE. So to start off with, do we just want to sort of talk broad thoughts or hop right into the recap?
We can do a couple broad thoughts and then get into the recap.
Okay, Vince, why don't you go first? Sort of big picture thoughts on Battleground.
Oh man, it's kind of what you said, man. It was it was a very. I will say this. I guess usually the WWE is very predictable, so I guess this was very unpredictable. And I think the unpredictability was good in some spots, not good in others. But the fact that it was unpredictable. That's a check mark for me because usually we know everything that's going to happen from opening bell to closing bell. I don't think you could say that tonight. Some things I understood, some things I did not understand. So, I'm a big fan of outside of the box. I don't think today was your straightaway 100% predictable finishes. So I think that's a good thing.
Raj?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I thought, ultimately it's kind of like the pay-per-view kind of kept the status quo going, right? No titles changed, nothing really controversial happened that will shake anything up as far as the draft goes or anything like that. So on that end, it wasn't the most newsworthy pay-per-view. There were some cool things that, like Bayley making her main roster debut. Mojo Rawley made his debut, but I don't think that was quite as successful as Bayley's. And but other than that, it kind of just no title changes. Everything is just going to keep on going. So, but not newsworthy. But I thought it was a fun show, and I really thought Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, that match really took the pay-per-view to a good thumbs up in my opinion.
Yeah, I was hoping for some surprises, but I think, you guys are both right that it maintained the status quo, no big changes. I think the belts, are staying where they started at with this. And, there were some nice spots, though. There were some parts I enjoyed, but some things that, as a fan, I was frustrated by. So let's hop into the full recap. But before we do, just want to take a quick sec to remind everyone that this episode is brought to you by our friends at HostPapa. HostPapa's powerful web hosting solutions and cloud-based productivity tools are perfect for small business owners, digital entrepreneurs, and freelancers. Go to hostpapa.com/wrestling today and use our exclusive promo code WRESTLING to save 15% off their popular shared web hosting packages. That's hostpapa.com/wrestling. So, hopping into the show, I guess, pre-shows is as good a place to start with as anyone. I thought the match there was surprisingly, for a match involving Breezango, was a real match against the Usos. I think that's like the first solid actual piece of wrestling I've seen them do, where it wasn't just treated as comedy. I have to say, in my opinion, that was a nice, surprising way to start off the show. Vince, your thoughts?
Bro, listen. All honesty, 3 hours is more than enough for me. There's no pre-show for me. Bro-dongo, fan-dongo, whatever they call themselves. Not interested. Sorry, Raj. I'm not a pre-show guy. I'll sit through the pay-per-view, but I did not watch anything pre-show.
You sound like my wife, Vince. That's her attitude sometimes on these.
Well, Raj? Yeah. The pre-show, it's 45 minutes of talk. And just mindless banter before you get a pointless match. So yeah, I wouldn't be watching it if I didn't have to. But I thought the match itself was good. It's definitely better than most pre-show matches, and kind of good seeing Breezango getting the win. I think fans kind of have Uso fatigue, and they've just been around so long doing kind of the same role. I think they need, I don't know if a heel turn or something, maybe split them up, give them new gimmicks, but they need a coat of fresh paint.
Yeah, and that's, my thing as a note on pre-shows in general. Here's what I've realized is that you can really easily skip the first half hour of the pre-show because all it's going to do is spoil every video package you're going to see later on in the pay-per-view, recapping all the matches, and setting them up. But I have to say, for the one match, normally I just sort of half pay attention during that. I was actually thought that was somewhat solid match. So moving on to Battleground itself. Surpriser for me, at least, on two fronts. One, the women's tag team match opened the show. We had Charlotte and Dana taking on Sasha and her surprise teammate, which turned out to be Bayley. I was surprised they did this first, but I think with Bayley, obviously, the audience, there was a huge pop from this. Vince, to you first. What did you think of the match?
Yeah,
and
it's again, man, and I'm going to try not to be a broken record. First of all, I am a Bayley fan. You can't, I don't know how it's possible to not like Bayley. Like, to be honest, I don't care if you're 5 or 50. You just love this girl. I am a big fan of Bayley. But again, I will never understand the math or the mindset of just throwing somebody out there and assuming everybody knows who she is. When I talk about doing the math, there's 1.5 million people subscribe to the network. So assuming all of them watch NXT, that's 1.5 million who know who Bayley is. Then you go to Raw that has an audience of 3.5 million people. Do the math. 2 million people would not know who Bayley is. And I was a big proponent and a big advocate of setting the table for a talent, rolling out the red carpet, getting everything in place so you build that huge pop. You build the anticipation. I call it setting the table. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they stopped doing that. It's only a fraction of people watch NXT that actually watch Raw. So believe it or not, when Bayley comes out, there's a lot of people that don't know who she is. And I don't agree with not, whether it's video presentation, whatever it is, setting the table, setting the anticipation, getting the people excited about her coming in rather than here comes Bayley. Because I'll tell you guys, as an absolute shoot, and I watch NXT here and there, that what is his name? Mojo Riley? What's his name?
Mojo Riley.
I had no idea who that guy was. That is an absolute shoot. When the guy came down, I had no idea who that guy was.
Did you see? Sorry.
You got to understand, I am part of the casual viewing audience that they lost. So, my deal is if they want Bayley to be a star, and I believe Bayley is a star, treat her like a star, set the table for her, make it as big as it possibly can be on her debut in the WWE. That's just my opinion.
And I agree with that. Obviously, the crowd knew who she was, but you do get that pop from the crowd, but the broader audience, is not familiar with her. At least half. So they get the impression that she's a big deal. But I agree. I think in long term, it's always better when you build someone coming up. And but it did sound like JBL said several times that that Bayley, that this was a one-time thing.
Yeah.
And that she's kind of basically saying that she's heading back to NXT. So maybe when they bring her back again, they can do that.
See, I think with fandom and in this modern age, and if it's the only thing that I would say that has proved contrary to that for me in recent memories with Enzo and Cass. They came into Raw, no build-up whatsoever, and the people there knew, granted it was the night after WrestleMania, so the audience there knew, and they were just over immediately.
Yeah, but bro, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Enzo and Cass on NXT, okay, I called my friend Terry Taylor, who was a trainer at the facility. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, are you freaking kidding me? Like Terry, tell me the reason these guys aren't working for the WWE. And Terry explained to me that Enzo was a gym rat, and, you know, it's the old he didn't pay his dues BS that goes with wrestling. Bro, huge difference, Glenn, with all due respect. You know, that if there's one guy that didn't need an intro, it's Enzo. Because the minute the guy stepped out the curtain, he was somebody. So I totally get it in that case. But, you know, here you have Bayley. You know, she didn't even open her mouth. You know, she didn't say anything. It was nothing like that. So I agree with you on the Enzo thing, bro, but I think that definitely is the exception to the rule.
Well, I think what it's going to do, and this was my thought after JBL said the thing about a one-time thing, is I think this is actually marketing to bring more people into NXT and to bring Bayley, and I think it's going to give more buzz to the casuals that were watching tonight. Who's this girl? We know that we love Sasha. Why did Sasha choose her? I think people are going to go, and this is going to pique curiosity of a lot of those 2 million fans maybe who don't subscribe to the network, you know. So I mean, that's why I think there could be that effect. But just, you know, my quick thoughts on the match is that I have to say Sasha's genuine smile at the beginning was fantastic. Loved that you could just see how happy she was seeing them pairing together. And, you know, the hug at the end, I thought was a great capper. I mean, the match itself, you know, I thought it had some really strong moments, some weak moments, but all in all, you know, I enjoyed it.
There were some scary botches in that match. There was that flying head scissors that looked like it could have gone, you know, really ugly. But, you know, they pulled through it, and the Bayley thing, the crowd being so hot, I thought it really made the match, and it was fun, especially considering, you know, it involved Dana Brooke as well. So it was good.
That's becoming the little footnote to all those matches. So, of course, now after this, Bayley goes back to NXT. Sasha, Charlotte, and Dana go to Monday Night Raw. Here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast, when it comes to Monday Night Raw, we will be doing that going forward every Monday night, immediately after Monday Night Raw ends. You can go to the Wrestling Inc. website to watch us record it live. We'll be doing that tomorrow night. We'll be here live right after the show. Matt Morgan will be our guest on the show. And, of course, with our SmackDown coverage, that will be Wednesdays at noon Eastern, live on Wrestling Inc. podcast to go out shortly thereafter. Moving on to the second match of the night, we had the Wyatts versus the New Day. Just opening thoughts on that. Raj, to you first this time.
Well, I think, you know, Bray Wyatt obviously is going to be one of the top guys on SmackDown, so you do want to build him up. But at the same time, New Day is your tag team champions. I don't think having them lose to a team that's disbanding is the right thing to do. You know, you could have had Eric Rowan take the pin, you know, Braun Strowman, but I just felt like the wrong team won here. But you know, that being said, I thought the match itself was good.
Well, yeah, and Vince, I'm curious your thoughts, and also if you could just spin some logic maybe from a creative point of view of having the champs lose, but it being a non-title match.
Well, God, this was so kabuki-ish on so many levels. Let me first say I disagree a little bit with Raj. Listen, I'm a Bray Wyatt homer. So anytime Bray Wyatt can get a win, like, I'm okay with it. You know, the fact of the matter, the titles weren't on the line. It was a 6-man tag. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I think they were able to get away with the heels going over. I did not have a problem with that. Here's what I had a problem with. This kabuki-ish story of Xavier Woods being hypnotized for the last month. All of a sudden now he snaps out of being hypnotized only to get beat 5 seconds later. Like, that to me was like, what the freak? That to me made absolutely no sense. If the guy was going to overcome being hypnotized by Bray, well, then he should have had the big comeback and went over. But the fact that after 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, all of a sudden he's overcome his fear of Bray Wyatt, why I have no idea, but then to lose 3 seconds later, like, I would love to hear some of these creative discussions and how they arrive at that with the pieces they had in place. I would just love, like, who comes up with this finish? How does nobody put the kibosh on it? Kabuki-ish, man.
No, and I tell you, I was excited to what you were saying, Vince. I was excited when Xavier snapped out of it, took them all on there for, like, what, 15 seconds, and it looked like that's where it was going, and then to have him lose after that, I don't know. I mean, I thought that's where it was headed, and I thought that would have been a satisfying end. But yeah, as it was, I'm not sure. I mean, we talked about this podcast or two ago, but after that whole thing at the compound, and then the New Day shows up like nothing happened, and they're all sunshine and rainbows again. It's just this whole narrative. I don't know what we're supposed to take from it. I don't know what the point of it was. And now, yeah, the Wyatts are splitting off, and we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I thought it was an unsatisfactory end to all that came before it.
Yeah, I agree because there's nowhere really to go for this. I think New Day is moving on to the club after this, so
yeah.
So
and Raj, a couple of shows back, bro, when they first introduced this angle, bro, we had a lot of hope for it.
Uh-huh.
When New Day came out and they confronted the Wyatts. I mean, I was even a little excited at that point, but man, what they did over the last 6 weeks, I just don't see the point to any of it. What was it for?
Yeah, I agree. The compound thing, all that, it just went nowhere ultimately, and it just makes Xavier look kind of weak and got freaked out again. And ultimately, I don't think this feud did much for anyone.
Definitely. Moving on to the next match, we had the U.S. title match between Zack Ryder and Rusev, with Rusev prevailing, and the match ending with Mojo Rawley rushing out to aid his fellow hype bro. Vince, so aside from not knowing who in the hell this Mojo character was, I mean, what did you think of the match itself?
I thought bro, it's like I just had I had a problem with this match. I just had a problem that booking wise, Zack Ryder gave Rusev this hard of a time. Yeah. I mean, Rusev, God, they were so on the right track with him the first time he was a U.S. champion. Then they completely buried him. Now they put the title on him again. They have another opportunity to make him a main event player. Zack Ryder should have never took him, this far. And now if he's going to get into an angle with Mojo, I mean, oh my God! Rusev can be a top guy, man. He can, but he should be killing these people.
Yeah, I agree. They should not have given Ryder, especially when they made Ryder look like a geek on TV over the past couple weeks. It's not like they made him a real threat. So you make him, look like he's just a placeholder, someone for him to beat up, and then you give him that much offense. I thought that's a mistake. Rusev, like Vince said, should be a top guy. And then, man, that Mojo thing at the end, that was painful. Mojo's facial expressions, they were almost comical. And
well, that's where they kill the heels, Raj. Like, honestly, I'm watching this. I never saw a Mojo in my life, and quite frankly, never hope I see him again. But I'm sitting there again, Vince Russo, casual wrestling fan, and here's what I'm saying. Why is Rusev bailing from this guy? Like, Rusev should be able to kill this guy within 2 minutes. So that's where they kill the heels. That's where they hurt Rusev. And unless Mojo is going to be more of a valuable player to you than Rusev, I don't know why you would kill Rusev. The fact that he ran from this guy and, JBL or whoever, they got to cover it by saying, well, he just wrestled a match. Give me a break. Rusev could wrestle 10 matches and still kill this guy. That's where they hurt the heels. That's why they never get Rusev up over the hump.
Yeah, and did you see Rusev's tweet afterwards?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of something to what you said, Vince. He was like, how was that fan allowed in the ring?
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty hilarious. But yeah,
I like Mojo personally, but some of that has to do with his out-of-ring behavior. I mean, I just think he's an interesting guy, and I think it'll be interesting to have him and Zack on the same show. But what I was most surprised by was JBL was kind of putting Mojo over and like talking him up a little bit after that run-in, which I thought was interesting, seeing as JBL, I don't know, doesn't always have the nicest things to say about these NXT call-ups.
Yeah, I like Mojo too. I just thought that this was the wrong way to do it. And him not doing anything physical, just standing there making those faces, just looked, just fell flat and looked awkward.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was, though, I mean, the whole thing with Ryder and with Rusev, I mean, was kind of awkward. I mean, all of it, the way that they had Rusev just sort of demolish him, and then this idea that, I mean, my biggest complaint, you know, we'll talk about this because it goes into the Intercontinental match as well. I know a lot of stuff was last minute with this brand split, and they were changing things up to it, but we essentially had all these storylines that have been building, in some cases for, you know, weeks or even a month or longer, and they just kind of came to this unsatisfying conclusion because nothing could change with the way the brand split was set up. And they're not going to face each other again. So this is the end of the Zack Ryder Rusev storyline, the end of Darren Young and the Miz storyline, and we just kind of had this half-assed ending. You know, it's all that came before it. It's my editorial frustration on it. So that happened with Ryder losing, tapping out again. And after that, we came to what many people are calling the match of the night, which was Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. Raj, I know you really loved this match, so let's start with your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I thought it was great. That backflip off the ropes to the outside that Zayn slipped. I wasn't sure if he slipped or just missed it, or if the ropes were a little loose. But man, that looked like it could have been scary. And so thankfully he didn't get hurt on that. But man, I thought this was a great match. This is what a feud should be. You build up to a big match and you have a great match and you tell a good story and have the right guy win. I think Sami should have won this. I thought Kevin was great. But they're on the same brand. You don't, for a 3-hour show, they're obviously going to be bumping into each other a lot. So I definitely don't think this is the end of the feud like they've been hyping. But I thought this was the best thing on the show.
Vince?
Well, I mean, it's not my type of match. Raj knows that, so I'm not, I'm not going to sit here and put the match over. The match should have ended 10 times. I mean, Shawn Michaels used to super kick somebody in the face, and that was the end of the match. I saw 5 Shawn Michaels super kicks in this match, but somehow, some way, bro, I would love to see. I seriously, one time. Would show me one person that could get kicked square in the face and kick out at the count of 2. That's why I don't care about the high spots. It's so freaking unbelievable. I'm not a fan of this style of match. Everybody knows it. I feel the wrong guy went over. Okay, as much as I don't like either guy, and I don't like their characters, I don't know Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens personally. Okay, I don't like their characters. I don't think they look like wrestlers. Everybody knows the deal, but I do know this. I think Kevin Owens is a little bit more valuable than Sami Zayn. I mean, I will say this. So to me, I would have put Kevin Owens over. I think he's more. I think he's the more valuable commodity, and I would have put him over in the match.
I agree with that point. I just think Sami Zayn has just lost way too many times on pay-per-view that they need to give him a little steam. But this also is kind of one of those matches where ultimately it doesn't really do all that much to the winner or loser. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really matter who won or lost. But and I agree with you, Vince. I mean, we've talked about this before. Yeah. When you do too many finishing moves and everyone's kicking out, I'm not a big fan of that. But other than that, I like this one.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the back and forth. I don't think it's the best match I've ever seen them have, but I thought there were some really good spots. But Vince, what you're saying to the appeal, I think personally, I mean, look, this should tell you right here, it's, as a fat guy with a beard, I'd personally like to thank Kevin Owens for giving me my last-minute Halloween costume for the next 5 years. I think Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, that's really who they're geared towards, or are the wrestling nerds that are in their, 20s and 30s primarily, who want to see other wrestling nerds in the ring. I mean, that's what they are.
I agree. I agree 100%, Glenn. But I don't get that philosophy out there. When there is a whole world out there, why are you going after a niche audience that you already have? And I'll never understand that. And I get tired of talking about it. But from a business point of view, I'll never understand that.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, so I gotta say, I like the back and forth of the match. I love, Owens. I love his taunts. I love the stuff he does. I love the "Why won't you stay down?" Although I was half expecting, with what they're going for Sami Zayn to pull out that Captain America quote about "I could do this all day." I really like the storytelling they were doing with that, and hopefully there will be a little pause in that because I think they are in danger. I've said before, I could literally enjoy watching them fight forever and feud forever, but I think they're going to have some side feuds and some breaks to keep it interesting, because I think people are going to get really bored. I mean, I don't know, Raj, your prediction, do you think SummerSlam is going to be, round 2 of the final battle?
No, I think they got to stop now, and I think that they had a good ending to it. With Sami Zayn really hesitating or thinking twice at the end before kind of finishing him off. I thought that was a nice touch. So I think move on this thing. I just don't think. Kind of to Vince's point, I think wrestling fans like it, but I don't know if the casual fans really care about this feud. And so let's move on.
Yeah. So we're going to get to the next match in a second, Becky versus Natalya. But before we do that, just want to take a moment and thank a sponsor of this episode, Host Papa. Raj, running your own business, what are some of the frustrations you've found in setting up a website and running a website?
Oh, with the website, on the technical end, it's definitely, hosting is a huge issue because it kind of is out of your hands. Almost everything else you have control over. And, when you're hosting with the company and your site's down, there's not much you can do. You're at their mercy. So it's so important to find the right hosting company and be with someone, that's reliable.
Yeah, because it's not just about when things are going well. It's about when something's wrong. Are they going to be there to take care of it, to walk you through the process? If you screw something up, are they going to help you fix it? That's why we here at Wrestling Inc. love Host Papa. Host Papa has complete turnkey solutions that make it easy for small business owners, digital entrepreneurs, freelancers, really anyone that has web hosting needs to get a website up and running. They literally have everything that you need, including lightning fast servers, professional email, automated backups, latest in security, and hundreds of cloud-based productivity tools. And with their super easy to use drag and drop website builder, there's no limit to how awesome your site can look. Or you can use their simple one-click WordPress installer and be up and running in no time at all. They're the best web host for small business with affordable pricing and award-winning support available via chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and that's available via chat, phone, or email, and by the way, in 4 languages. If you need extra help, they'll even give you a free dedicated 30-minute one-on-one training session with one of their experts. No other web host does that. It's phenomenal. They've got your back, they want to get you up and running, and they want to take care of all your web hosting needs. Shared hosting accounts start as low as $3.95 per month, and they'll even throw in a domain name for free. And hey, there's no risk because Host Papa offers an unconditional 30-day money-back guarantee. If you already have a site hosted elsewhere, they've got your back, and they'll help you migrate it over for free. Here's what we want you to do. Visit hostpapa.com/wrestling to check out what they have to offer. And because they're fans of the Wrestling Inc. podcast, they're offering our listeners an exclusive 15% off new shared hosting accounts. Just enter our code WRESTLING at checkout for a 15% discount. That's hostpapa.com/wrestling. Use the code WRESTLING to save 15% off their powerful, reliable, and secure web hosting needs for small business owners. I want to thank Host Papa for sponsoring the podcast. Great guys. Glad to have him here as a sponsor of the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Back to Battleground. So I felt this was kind of a cool down match, but we had Becky versus Natalya, sort of the culmination of, the showdown in their feud after Natalya turned on Becky. I mean, Raj, what did you think of this, especially as it compared to the opening women's match?
It was hard to follow up with that Owens Zayn match with just how into that match the crowd was. So they had a rough assignment, and I mean the match kind of fell flat, but it was kind of in that spot where it just couldn't really do much. So it was filler. This feud never really got going, and I thought that this was a clean finish. So I think they're both going to be moving on after this.
Hope to God. Vince, what did you think?
God, yeah, man, but I think it was a clean finish too, which surprised me that Natalya went over. Again, I think Becky is more valuable, and I mean, I would have liked to see, why not let Becky get the 1, 2, 3, and then Natalya get heat after the match, and then blow it off tomorrow night on Raw, do something, But God, this did nothing for Becky. I mean, at all, and she's another wrestler I'm a fan of. Natalya has been around a lot longer. She may have already peaked. I don't see Natalya peaking as a heel. I thought they should have put Becky over, and they should have gave Natalya heat after the 1, 2, 3. I think this hurt Becky. I really do.
Well, especially, I mean, Becky, Tuesday we found out from the draft, I mean, Becky is the face of the women's division on SmackDown. And just, I don't know, I mean, what a crappy way to kick that off, you know, going into this week with it's like, oh yeah, we had her lose. I think I was reading on Reddit, this is like she's 0 for 6 now with pay-per-view matches going back to her time in NXT. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, Dean Ambrose, lots of other people that have gotten a push and went a long time having these losing streaks. But as a huge Becky fan, you know, with married also to a huge Becky fan, we really wanted to see her win for once. I'm hoping this is setting her up for something at SummerSlam. But yeah, just kind of a weird way to end that feud that never really had any traction in my book.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I think Becky winning does make a lot more sense. She's got the star look. She's young, and she needs the booking help. She's just been made to look, irrelevant lately. And when the SmackDown female roster is so shallow, it seems like you'd want to do more to, prop her up.
Well, it's weird, right? Because, I mean, you assume, and we've joked about this, in the handful of podcasts that I've done so far with you guys, but, I mean, you assume, like, God, if you have a streak like this, you must have really pissed somebody off backstage. But everything I've ever read talking about the backstage chatter is that she's very well regarded and they know they have something special with her. So I just don't get why she's constantly put in this position of just, winning the fans over and not giving us a satisfying win. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. So after that, we went into the Intercontinental Championship match where we had Darren Young with Bob Backlund at his side facing The Miz with Maurice. It's funny. I looked at my notes for this, and first thing I wrote this before they said it on commentary. What's up with The Miz's weird eyes wide shut masks? And that just I wrote Bob Backlund does old man crazy well. Those to me were the two biggest thoughts I had of the match. Vince, what did you think of this?
I thought this was a real weird finish. I really did. I don't think Miz needs the belt. He's got the beautiful wife. He's got a good gimmick. He can cut great promos. I don't think he needs the belt. I'm sure this will continue on. I don't think this was the period at the end of the sentence. But again, kabuki-ish finish.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to continue because they're on the separate brands.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even realize. Well, then it's more kabuki-ish.
Yeah. It was just a wacky finish. I don't think Bob Backlund at 66 should be doing those flat back bumps on the outside of the ring. He had doing 2 of those. It's not a good idea. One thing, when Darren Young's doing Bob Backlund's gimmick, looking at his hands and all that, he's doing a gimmick that took place kind of at the depth of wrestling popularity,
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling was kind of at its, at least WWE in the modern era was at its low at that point. So most fans are not going to know what the hell is going on, and if you don't really explain that, it just comes across as odd, and it just fell flat, and it was just weird, and the ending was just so wonky that I thought it just put a negative. It cast a negative shadow over the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, and I have to admit, like, I always knew the name Bob Backlund, and for me, it came out of WrestleMania Access this past year. I know I talked about this. He was walking around to people in line at WrestleMania Access asking for their email address for when he starts a podcast and writing it down on a legal pad. And someone was like, "Oh, that's Bob Backlund," and I, had a lot of time in line at Access, so I went on Wikipedia and was like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense. That's that guy that I'd heard of before." But yeah, I think he's an interesting choice, of someone to evolve in this, and knowing from now what I've read about him, I think that, like, taking back bumps, I think that was entirely his idea. I think he was just, itching to do it. And I enjoyed that aspect of it, but aside from that, yeah, I really just don't care about Darren Young's quest. They haven't made me care about Darren Young. With The Miz, though, Vince, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I think The Miz is just a fantastic utility heel, and you could put him in any feud, any role where he needs to be to help,
Yeah, that's the problem. That they can use some of these belts to help people. Like New Day's another one. New Day does not need the tag team belts. You can put those belts on somebody else to help them get over. New Day does not need the belts. I don't think Miz needs the belts. Okay. And I think you could spread those belts around, and they could be integral in getting other people over. That's why I just think people can use those belts a lot more than New Day and the Miz.
And I think another thing that was weird is why was the match stopped? You know,
Yeah.
like he was attacking his opponent outside the ring. Since when is that a DQ? So it looked like someone was, those guys were on the same page because something got screwed up there at the end. It seemed like. And did they announce a winner?
No, I think it was just the Miz stayed. I think it was just DQ and the Miz retained.
Did they say that? The reason why I'm asking is now you have these sites that are doing the betting on WWE events. So I wonder what they do on something like that if they don't announce a winner.
Actually, you know what's crazy? So I talked about this before, the WWE Topps Slam Card app that I figured out the little hack to get unlimited coins on. So on that today, they had a thing where you could bet coins, and it didn't say that you were betting that the Miz or Darren Young would win, but that they would leave the match as the Intercontinental Champion.
No, but this is people betting money.
Oh, I know.
These UK betting sites. But
I'm saying that was interesting. Maybe that was a bit of a tip-off in how that was worded on that betting thing today, because it was very specific about that. It said, but no, I agree with you. I actually tried to figure out, and they always say, right, I mean, like, who would bet on professional wrestling? I really looked into how can I fund one of these Sky betting accounts in Europe so I can bet on pro wrestling.
Don't do it. The house always wins on those because they get those results. Like they were all right, again tonight. So
no, absolutely.
Unless you want to spend, put $2,000, to
$5 to make $6. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. But yeah, it was a weird match, weird ending. Again, the only thing that's the same is that, or the only thing that's different is that nothing changes. Just different ways. But yeah, so that was really, really weird. So from that, we went to Cena with Enzo and Cass versus AJ and the Club. Vince, what did you think of this match?
Well, first of all, this is what I'm looking at. I thought Enzo was brilliant. Here's what I'm worried about, and I think we saw this happen with the New Day. People don't, I have my critics out there that they like to turn around and say, oh, Vince likes to take credit for The Rock, and Vince likes to take credit for Steve Austin, and this, that, and first of all, I've never taken any credit for any of those guys. I've never taken any credit for any talent I ever worked with. But this I do know. When you have a great talent, as a writer, you have to step up their game because you have to give them great material every week. For as great as Steve Austin was, we had to write for Austin to drive a beer truck in the arena, for Austin to drive a Zamboni in the arena, for Austin to fill up Vince McMahon's car with cement. When you have somebody that great, you've got to give them great material or the star is going to fall. That's where the pressure comes in. What I'm afraid of with Enzo and Cass, and especially Enzo, the promo tonight was unfreaking believable. But I know how the WWE works. There's such a lack of creativity, they're going to keep depending on the promo. And after you've heard Enzo give his promo in the ring, 10 times, a dozen times, 15 times, all of a sudden it's not special anymore. And I think that's what happened to the New Day. I think New Day was very entertaining at the beginning, but then every promo was the same. They didn't have new material, and, it was really getting old. So, God, man, I just hope somebody is capable of giving Kaz and Enzo material that mirrors how good they are. Because at the end of the day, they're going to need material. They're going to need an angle. They're going to need a story. And I just hope that they get that support so they can remain as good as they are. I also want to point out, this is what people don't understand about John Cena. The way he put those guys over, though, that's the thing I notice. Cena went out of his way to put those guys over, and that is an ultimate professional. I mean, that's why I will always be a fan of John Cena, and I think the right guys won the match.
I thought Enzo was just fantastic with this promo. I mean, he's got to be the most charismatic guy they've had, in this new generation of talent. He's got to be at the top. I mean, he was so good. He owned that crowd the whole time. His line about never making eye contact while eating a banana, I never laugh out loud when I watch wrestling anymore, but that made me laugh out loud. Man, he's just amazing. John Cena looks like he just gets such a kick out of those guys too. And so I thought the thing that bugs the crap out of me is when JBL is pointing it out on commentary that Big Cass is like the star of the group. When he said something to the effect of Big Cass is going to be a big single star one day. He doesn't say anything about Enzo. Kind of dismissing Enzo and really putting it out there that Big Cass is the star because of his size. And so that just drives me nuts because Enzo's money. You gotta, he changes the tide of the show. If it's boring, you get them on and it changes. Mm-hmm. So I just think that's backwards. And but yeah, the soccer mom stuff was great. The soccer mom chant was
AJ was corpsing at that. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really fun match. This whole segment, everything about it, I thought was really good. So it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I agree that I don't know if I would have done Cena pinning AJ if they're leading to Cena against AJ at SummerSlam, but I guess AJ did beat Cena once, so they had to reverse the the results. But it was the right team to win. Like Cena and Enzo and Cass should have got the win here because they've been losing to them a lot.
No, and creatively, I mean, I don't know what you guys have heard. I mean, you probably have insight. I just know what I read. But I mean, creatively, are they letting Enzo go with his stuff, or is creative giving him more of this material now?
Bro, there is no way creative is giving him that material. They're absolutely not.
That's good.
But that's what I'm saying, bro. As brilliant as the guy is, they keep putting him out there every week. Bro, that's what you need writers for. Because after a while, you're going to need some help. And that's what concerns me, because I don't know if they could be as good as he is.
No, I agree. That's a legit concern. I mean, my thing is more just on how they're booked in the sense that, and I've seen them, God, I mean, whether it's live, whether it was on NXT or now what we're seeing on the main roster, it's just that they have, and Enzo even said as much on Steve Austin's podcast that they're just about the hot tag. And basically Enzo goes out there and gets his butt kicked for 5 minutes, then does the hot tag with Cass. Cass comes in, stampedes everyone, and the match is over. I just want to see something different there. It's like I said, that's where I feel it's getting repetitive. Is that just let them come out and talk. I don't even need to see them wrestle each week if it's just gonna be the same thing again and again. But Enzo takes a beating better than anyone else, as far as just selling it. That's my personal take on it. So we have that, and then we had the highlight reel with Chris Jericho welcoming Randy Orton. But hey, before we do that, speaking of Chris Jericho, want to let everyone know to not forget to try out DDP Yoga, specifically their awesome Max Pack. It's used by Chris Jericho, AJ Styles, John Cena, tons of other WWE superstars who love using DDP Yoga. And hey, you can get a special offer with 3 months of the app for free at ddpyoga.com/wrestlinginc. Of course, don't forget the resurrection of Jake the Snake, now available on iTunes, Google Play, PlayStation, Amazon, and Vudu. Make sure to check that out. Tweet DDP Yoga, let them know we sent you. And of course, you can also see the film on DVD, Blu-ray, and Netflix. Great movie. We've talked it up here a ton on the podcast. Highly recommend it.
Also, don't forget to check out Trendy Butler, a fantastic clothing service that does all the work for you. You select a style profile, and Trendy Butler has a stylist handpicked clothes that cater to you. And even better, for just $65, you get over $150 in designer clothes. It's an awesome service. I've gotten clothes from him. I know Vince has. He has a beanie that's from Trendy Butler. So definitely try him out and use the code Wrestling10 when you sign up, and you'll get $10 off. So visit them at trendybutler.com and on Twitter at trendybutler.
Cool, man. So we had the highlight reel with Chris Jericho. I have to say the goatee is really kicking his character up a notch, in my opinion. I think the beret is next. That's my prediction. But yeah, welcome to Randy Orton. I thought they did a good little back and forth, some nice interplay. It ended in the way I think everyone would predict that it ended. But Raj, I mean, what did you think of the segment overall?
The only thing that really stood out for me was Randy Orton kind of, addressing Brock Lesnar's, UFC 200 drug test failures. He said something. He said no enhancement needed, which I I gotta think he did that on his own. And if he did, I wouldn't think that Vince would be too happy about that. But or maybe it was their way of kind of getting at Lesnar. I mean, Vince, what do you think of the whole Lesnar thing? And do you think WWE is going to do anything about it, or are they going to let it go?
God, bro, listen, if this were a privately owned company, no. But it's not privately owned anymore, man. Being a publicly owned company and board of directors and stockholders, I don't know how the guy can fail a UFC test and then work SummerSlam. I mean, God, they're gonna have to answer to that. So, I don't know, man. I can't see it happening.
Yeah, and they're past the point now that if they suspend him for 30 days, now that goes into SummerSlam. If they did it last week, he could have been back before. But there's still going to be the state athletic commission hearing, so maybe they'll take action after that. But yeah, it was interesting to see Orton make that reference. It kind of cut the promo there for a second. Jericho, it took him a minute to kind of get his bearings again. He made a reference about Orton possibly getting in trouble for that one, but that was the only thing that really stood out for me. I don't know.
Just didn't like, man. I was working for the WWE, and I was watching Jericho on TV every week at WCW, and I knew his contract was coming up, and I actually was the one that reached out to Jericho and started talking to him while he was still working at WCW. So, I know that Jericho, and I know how cool he was when he first came into WWE with the Y2J and all that stuff. I was there for that. God, I just hate that they've made the guy like a buffoon. To me, Jericho should never be a buffoon, and the whole segment is to set up the RKO. You know it, but I just hate it. It just seems they do that to Jericho week in and week out. It's like the old school heel. It's like Bobby the Brain Heenan. I mean, and. I hate Jericho being used that way week after week after week. I don't want to believe he's that stupid, because I know he's not.
I was almost wondering, watching that, given the news this week, or maybe it was just gossip going around about Heyman's contract, being up. I was almost thinking, God, we should have Jericho as Brock's mouthpiece at this point, the way he was talking him up there in the highlight reel. But no, I agree. The swipe was interesting, and some people are pointing out in the comments right now, the live comments on the Wrestling Inc. site, talking about what happened with Billy Gunn getting fired for using PEDs at a non-WWE competition, and that would be very hypocritical for them not to ding Brock for this.
Yeah, there's always going to be double standards.
Yep.
And that's just wrestling. That's just life. That's big sports. The big stars there's always going to be more exceptions for the big stars than guys that are working behind the scenes and things like that. I think if the Nevada State Athletic Commission comes down against Brock, I think they would have to do something because it's just so public. And by doing the thing with Roman Reigns, I feel like they kind of sent this message out that they take this seriously, and it doesn't matter who you are. And if they let Lesnar slide, it just, even though it wasn't a WWE test, but they've done that before. They've suspended people in the past for, that signature pharmacy thing that happened a while back, where there was like 10 wrestlers that got caught, in this sting operation getting PEDs in the mail. And they all got suspended, so there's precedence for it. So I think they will have to do something if that comes out. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens. So after the highlight reel, which ended, yes, in an RKO, as I think everyone predicted. I mean, really, there was no other way it could have ended. We had the triple threat match for the WWE title with Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose. Roman Reigns coming back to just, God, I mean, you would, I mean, I know we talked about this before, but I mean, I would have expected maybe some of the boos would have softened and he would have gotten some pop after a month, but no, the haters seemed out in full effect. That being said, Vince, I'm sure
you have some thoughts on the main event and the triple threat match.
Listen, I'm a fan of all three of these guys. Unlike Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, I'm not fans of those guys. I'm a fan of all three of these guys. I don't like this style match. Listen, maybe it has to do with I am a writer. Okay, every move these guys are doing in this match, they laid out and they choreographed before the show. So I don't understand the mindset of anybody that's sitting in the crowd chanting, "This is awesome, this is awesome," over a fake fight where they practiced the moves. I'll never understand that. I'm sorry. I'm a writer. It's a fake fight. They practiced that stuff in the afternoon. They talked about it to nauseam. Okay, this was another case. No selling, 97 false finishes. The match should have ended 10 times before it did. And then to make matters worse, it ends on the dirty deeds. There were 10 more devastating finishes before the dirty deeds, but it ends on the dirty deeds. That is so freaking unbelievable to me. Listen, go back to SummerSlam. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. Go back to Cena and Brock Lesnar. When you believed that was a fight, and I'm sitting at my home and I'm saying, I don't care how choreographed that was, how fake that was, they just beat the crap out of each other's bodies. I don't know how those guys are going to wake up tomorrow. You believed that was a fight. I'm never going to be a fan of this type of match. And all along, I've been saying they've been treating Ambrose like a placeholder. They've been treating Ambrose like a placeholder. So I was a little surprised that he won the match, but I will now be absolutely shocked if he comes out of SummerSlam the champion.
Well, what do you think they're going to do with the world title, Vince? You think they're going to just keep it on SmackDown like they're saying, or are they going to create a new world title for Raw, or just have the champion go between the two shows, which they haven't been saying that's what would happen. Obviously, this week a lot of that's going to be more clear, but what do you think they should do?
I think they're going to wind up creating a new title on Raw, and I think that'll probably come out of SummerSlam, I would think.
You think they'll trickle down with the tag belts and the women's championship too?
Probably so.
Yeah.
I really think they believe, honestly, I think the WWE believes this wholeheartedly. I think they believe that they can create a WWE versus a WCW within the same company, and the notion of that is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. So, but I know they believe that. So if they believe that, you've got to have a heavyweight champion. You've got to have it's got to be an even playing field. So they're going to have the same titles, in both companies, so they can really have this competition that they believe they're going to have. And I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be competition, because any casual fan is going to watch a 2-hour show over a 3-hour show. It's that simple. You're going to watch SmackDown first simply because it's 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, I think SmackDown has people are saying how Raw did so much better in the draft than SmackDown, but SmackDown's 2 hours and you got Morrow, so it's got a huge advantage just with that alone. But I don't agree with Vince on this one. I actually really like this match. I mean, the false finish things, I agree that's overdone. But, I thought it was good for what it was. Again, ultimately the match didn't really lead to anything. It just kind of ended, so... you kind of had Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins wrestling over the past 7 days 3 times on TV, and it not really going anywhere storyline-wise. It just ended. But I thought it was good. The thing that bothered me was them showing the guys watching in the back, and I just think you got to protect these characters more. And when you're showing like Eric Rowan watching the match, in his sheep mask, and it just drives me nuts.
No, in fact, one of my notes I wrote, did Goldust really just get painted up for the shot of the Raw locker room?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But no,
Rods, that's hysterical when you put it that way. Like, why is Rowan wearing the sheep mask? Like that That sums it up right there beautifully. Thank you for that.
And then coming out to celebrate at the end in the sheep mask too.
See that part. Okay, so the sort of curtain call at the end, I like stuff like that. I liked everyone coming out, but yeah, it is one of those sort of character breaking moments that doesn't make sense.
Just have the baby faces come out. You don't need you don't need the heels and the baby faces.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, my thing with these matches, and I feel like we've had a lot of them lately, is it's like when you have superheroes fight. It's the idea that it can't just be a quick match. You're going to have a lot of false finishes, a lot of blown finishers, because it's Batman versus Superman, essentially, in the WWE universe, the way they set these matches up, and it can't just be a straightforward thing. It feels like it has to go on for an excessive amount of time, or else it doesn't make sense with how strong they've built these characters to be.
And I'll be honest with you, Glenn, now that you mention that and put it in that perspective, I'll be honest, bro, I felt the same way watching Batman versus Superman. I sat in that movie theater and I was like, okay, enough already. Somebody get the 1, 2, 3. So like, yeah, literally, that was a good analogy, bro, but I felt the same exact way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I preferred Civil War's approach, but even Civil War had a final battle that went on way too long, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I like quick skirmishes. That's just me. I think my real question, okay, so Dean won, retained the belt. That's going to SmackDown. If he hadn't won, I mean, Raw would have had every championship except the Intercontinental belt. That just wouldn't have really made sense. But what I want to know is, I'm assuming that Rollins and Reigns are going to continue going on Raw. In your opinion, who's Dean's new feud on SmackDown? Vince, to you first.
Oh God, bro. Bro, who give me the top 5 guys at SmackDown?
Well, we got Cena, AJ, who are probably going to be feuding with each other. We got Lesnar, Raj, who.
No, Lesnar's on Raw. You got
Brock,
Bray Wyatt, and that really rounds out kind of the top.
And we did Bray already. I mean, I can't see Dean and Bray again.
I think that's the plan. They're at least booked for house shows after SummerSlam. So yeah, I definitely see them going that way.
Oh my God.
Let's see, who else do they got? Let's take a quick look here. You got Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton, and then you're going down to Miz, Baron Corbin, Dolph Ziggler, Natalya, Alberto Del Rio. Yeah, after those guys, you really got nobody. So they gotta bring some people in fast.
So my optimistic view is I think it's time for a Ziggler title run against Dean. My cynical view is, oh, hey, Kane's on the SmackDown roster. Let's just put him in a feud with. And I love Kane. Actually, I love corporate Kane, I should say specifically. And I love the man underneath the mask. But yeah, I think my cynical view is that Dean Ambrose is going to be in a feud with Kane, because that seems like the laziest possible route they could go.
They put Kane in a world title feud every year, so it wouldn't surprise me. But I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so overall thoughts on it. I mean, I thought the high spots of this and the surprises, I mean, whether it was Bayley and even with Mojo, just as a shock, it even had me fingers crossed, hoping Finn was going to come out during the club's segment. But I thought the surprises alone for me gave me, better feelings about this than a lot of the other pay-per-views in recent memory. But Raj, what's sort of your final thought on it?
I thought it was a fun show. I don't think you need to go past the 3-hour mark when you've already got so much TV every week and a pre-show. Just end it within the 3 hours. You don't need to go over. But other than that, I thought it was a fun show.
And Vince, for a contrary opinion, to sum it up.
I didn't have a problem with the show. I mean, I really didn't. Listen, here's the thing. This is what always amazes me, and I think we lose sight of this, and that's why I like to say it. Bro, a pay-per-view is just matches, okay? And I'm never negative on the work in the ring. I'm talking about the work rate. I don't like the non-selling and all that crap. But bro, these guys and gals bust their rear ends. And then I think what we forget about is, bro, they got to turn around tomorrow and get on a plane, turn around tomorrow, drive whatever, and they're working again on Raw. I don't think people really understand and grasp that. So to me, every time I see a pay-per-view, there's no story or nothing like that ever, but the talent is always busting their backside in the ring. So that to me just outshines, everything else. That's just how wrestlers are, bro. They give it their all. They don't write the show. If there's things I disagree with creatively, it's not on them. But like I said, I mean, from a creative standpoint, I like the fact that this wasn't 100% predictable across the board like it is many Monday nights.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Vince, doing a podcast with you for the first time, I'm glad that story is, one of the most important things to you in the product, because for me as well, I know, in the short time that I've been on this podcast, that's something I harp on a lot, is the creative aspect. But yeah, by all means, I mean, all due credit to the talent. I feel they do an awesome job of going out there and doing the work in the ring. For me, it's, great storytelling and the sort of meta moments. That's really what I sort of thrive on when watching this. I expect the ring work to be top notch, and there are standout spots, of course, but all in all, even when it's just an average match, I'm still very, very in awe of the work that goes on in the ring. So I know we touched upon what happened with Brock. What else do we want to cover before we take it home and wrap up this episode? Raj?
I think that's about it. I think it's going to be a big week. It's the first full week after the draft with the brand split, so it'll be a interesting thing to watch. See how they try to fill out the rosters, and yeah, see if they address, they might not even address if there's going to be new champions or new titles created, or hold off till SummerSlam. So yeah, it'll be a busy week.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see. Well, Vince, thanks so much for joining us here tonight on this, and we look forward to having you back after future pay-per-views. Is there anything you want to plug before we let you go?
Yeah, I just want to plug my daily show on Podcast One, and I'm going to plug this too, because I think if you're a wrestling fan, you will find this very, very interesting. I do a daily show on Podcast One. It's free Monday through Friday, but this Friday is the second part of my interview with Raven. And I always felt like Raven was one of those guys that you'll love this, Glenn. From a psychological point of view, Raven was just on another level, and I think that's why he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because he was so genius that he was. If you didn't understand him, you dismissed him. But he was on such a different level, and a lot of that comes out in this interview. So that's going to be on Podcast One on Friday, and the first part of it, is in the archives. It was on just last Friday.
Yeah, the guy is such a genius. It's a shame that he's not being utilized somewhere.
Unbelievable. Raj, when you look at some of the people who have jobs in wrestling and some of the people who don't, it boggles my mind. He's at the top of that list.
No, very cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. Want to remind everyone that we will be back here doing this live again in less than 24 hours for our complete coverage of Monday Night Raw tomorrow night. That's Monday, the 25th of July. It'll be Raj and myself, joined by wrestler Matt Morgan. And, of course, SmackDown edition of the Wrestling Inc. podcast is going to start happening Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time live. Podcast to go out later that afternoon. Vince, thanks for joining us tonight. Raj, great to do this as always. Want to remind everyone that if they like this podcast, they can go and subscribe to it on iTunes. Please leave us a review. Give us a rating if you dig it. We'd appreciate that greatly. Tell a friend. And, of course, you can follow Raj, Vince, and myself on Twitter. We're all very easy people to find. And thanks again to Host Papa, Trendy Butler, and DDP Yoga for sponsoring this episode. And we'll see you back next time here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Thanks so much, and take care.